I'm in Belém, Brazil, where COP30 climate summit is happening right now. And it is quite a significant climate summit, not just because it is happening at the mouth of Amazon, but the context that where we are living in. The reality is that this is 10th year after we got the Paris Agreement, yet we see temperatures continues to rise. We also see how fossil fuel expansion continues to happen, and we have very little money for adaptation. And if you talk about the loss and damage fund, yes, we got the launch of proposals here, but the money is simply a fraction of 1% of what is required. Now that's the context, and this is really important for us to see how ambition is increased at this climate summit, because we are living in a world which is already 1.6 degree warmer. Impacts are rising and we are not ready to deal with these impacts, and our ambition is really low and not as per what science demands. We have come here with a set of demands, and number one on our list is Belém action mechanism for a global just transition. It is very clear that developing countries are unable to transition away from fossil fuels because there is not enough support available to them. And that's why we need a mechanism which enables international cooperation and support for developing countries so that they can invest more and more in renewable energy. They can take care of the economy which can be turned greener, and they can support people who are dependent on fossil fuels, either for energy or for jobs or governments for revenue. So unless and until we have a mechanism in place, we will not be able to transition. Number two, finance. We know that finance has been lacking in these negotiations for a very long time. Whether we talk about mitigation, which is about emission reduction, or adaptation, that means being prepared for climate impacts, or loss and damage, as I said, barely 1% of what is required. Now, in that situation, we will not be able to transition as well as protect our people. So finance is absolutely fundamental across the board. Number three, ambition, which is connected. Now, that's where we need to also talk about the fair share of developed countries. The fact is they continue to put pressure on developing countries to do more, but back home, they are continuing to expand fossil fuels. In fact, if you look at some of the developed countries, they are responsible for more than 50% of global fossil fuel expansion by 2050. And I can name those countries: Australia, Canada, US, UK, and Norway. Now, that is not how we can get ambition in the climate space. So ambition is extremely important as temperatures continue to rise, and we need to hold those polluters to account. The other aspect, which is also extremely key, that if we are not able to do all that I have said just now, we will see that the trust in the multilateral system is going to get eroded. And that's something which is unacceptable, especially at a time when we are seeing multiple crises. And it's not just the climate crisis. We are looking at a biodiversity crisis. We are looking at pollution, which is affecting countries like India, our neighboring countries, and people around the world. We are also looking at inequality crisis, where people are not able to afford food or energy. In that situation, the global cooperation becomes absolutely fundamental, and this process has to restore trust and not erode it. We have seen some very interesting developments here in Belém. In the Leaders Summit, we heard President Lula being extremely bold, saying we need to transition away from fossil fuels, and he said we need a roadmap. And we have also seen leadership coming from Colombia, which has come up with a declaration and wants countries to sign. And both these countries jointly from the global south can provide that leadership where we can transition away from fossil fuels. Another thing that has happened, the proposal that civil society had put forward for Belém Action Mechanism, has now been taken up by the largest group of developing countries, G77 and China, which is extremely exciting because they are now adopting the proposal. They are now demanding the same mechanism that we have been demanding for a very long time. So in the next few days, they are going to be discussing. So the ball is now in the court of developed countries. They cannot ignore the demand any longer. They need to engage, and let's together come up with this mechanism which is going to put us on the right track. The biggest challenge that we are facing here is very little progress on finance. And as I said earlier, unless and until we get money for climate action, be it mitigation, adaptation, loss and damage, or the just transition, we will not be able to take action. And developed countries have been shying away and shirking their responsibilities. We need to make sure that we get trillions, and that too in public finance, in the form of grants and non-debt creating instruments. Otherwise, we will be intensifying the debt crisis that developing countries are already facing. It also requires us to look at the financial sector reform, which we have been demanding. We cannot just allow multilateral development banks to provide more and more loans to developing countries in the name of climate action. So when we talk about climate justice, it's about grants and non-debt creating instruments. And ultimately, we need to make sure that money is available for developing countries and communities for adaptation and dealing with loss and damage. Having a fund is great, we fought for it, but unless and until it reaches that scale, it makes sure that communities are able to access, and it acts as a rapid response mechanism. We are seeing disasters in South Asia, we are also seeing disasters as we speak in the Philippines, in Jamaica a few days ago. Developing countries are being battered, but they are not getting adequate support. So the next few days are going to be extremely important. The leadership that has been shown by President Lula and President Petro from Colombia on fossil fuel phase out or just transition is going to be extremely important. That can become the most important outcome at this COP30 if we are able to get support from developing countries and developed countries. Instead of blocking, they come on board. And we also would like to see progress on finance. As I said, finance has always been a very challenging issue. Now is the time that developed countries really come together. They should not take the route that the US has taken, which has pulled out from the Paris Agreement and pushing for more fossil fuels and of course not providing a single penny. This is where developed countries have a bigger responsibility to also bridge the gap that now exists because US is not providing any climate finance. And US administration has pulled out. I would also appeal to the US states, businesses, philanthropies to really come in, because as a country, US has the largest responsibility because it's the biggest emitter if you look at cumulatively, historically. So here we are definitely pushing for more ambition. We definitely would like to see money coming in and a real outcome on just transition. So the next few days are going to be extremely critical, and as civil society, we are continuing to put a lot of pressure on the leaders, on negotiators to make sure that we get a substantive outcome from COP30.